Lesson 5. In this week, we're going to look at light, color, and proper exposure. Having a good understanding of color and the effects of color and what you're trying to accomplish will serve you well during this lesson. When you're out to shoot, you want to look at your scene and determine in the beginning, will this look good in black and white? Will this be a good color shot? And if you're intentionally shooting in black and white, it's really important that sometimes if you squint, you can see in a scene the lights and the darks that may not record properly in the final image. So be very aware of what's happening in the color scene when you want to produce an image in black and white. Understanding what primary colors are, secondary and tertiary colors will also help you when you're trying to compose. Contrast in color and tone has to also be understood. What is contrast? How do color complements work with each other? How does the tone of the image or different parts of the image work together in terms of the tone? Black and white is typically, they say that it's used quite frequently with artistic work, but they're seeing it more and more in wedding photography. There's a larger demand for that. So you have to know how to shoot in color to get good black and whites to be able to deliver both to the client. Dramatic modeling of subjects, extreme contrast from light to dark. The big word for this is chiaroscuro. And understanding how light plays on the subject in all situations is really important to delivering an image that is very evocative of an emotion or a feeling. So be aware of how lighting falls on a subject and how that translates in both color and in black and white. Is there a lot of chiaroscuro happening in this image? We can see some of that in the shaded areas in the background, but this is a very contrasty image with a lot of strong darks and a lot of strong light happening as well. We refer to a big term called low-key and high-key images. In high-key, we'll see a lot of lights, whites, and the higher range of gray in a photograph. In a low-key image, you're typically working in the darker areas without a lot of large range and contrast from light to dark. So understanding high-key and low-key and how those work emotionally will help you get a lot of good imagery. This image is very well distributed in terms of the lights and the darks. There's a lot of dark in this area in the window with some strong contrasting light in the door. There's a lot of play of different contrasts. Now granted, there's a lot of work that could be done to this image. There could be some dodging and burning to brighten the photograph up, but in terms of overall distribution of light values, it has a nice wide range. The ladder has a medium gray, which contrasts against the block wall and the door. But what's really nice about this is the way the light falls. A lot of post-production needs to be done in this image, however. One of the biggies at this point in your work, and you'll probably see this a lot in your critiques, is closure. And what we refer to as closure is that the image must have some definition on the line, or even where there might be some specular burns in here. We want to see some sort of definition in the lights of the image. If your photograph comes out and it looks like a puzzle piece, that is really a problematic image, and it means it didn't have enough exposure to continue and or complete that image. And by week 5, 6, and on, that will be critically important, and you want to pay attention to that so there's not a lot of deductions and points. So when you're posting your photographs in Flickr or whatever your delivery method is, make sure that you're looking at it and saying, well, is there a defined edge, or is it just bleeding out? We'll refer to it as a bleed or a lack of closure. So be very, very conscientious of how your image looks. This one, the only way to salvage this image at this point is just to crop it down so that we just have what's happening over here and discard the rest. This image is fairly well distributed, but I know that I can look in this image, and if there was not a black border up here, it would still have a bleed, and that's not desirable. There's a lot of bleed, or not bleed actually, but too much burn that's occurring in the strap of the guitar. There's some nice ranges in here, but we're losing definition in here as well. So at this stage of your photographic career, a good understanding of how to create good black and whites is becoming very important. There's good software out there, and I don't have a problem. I don't think most instructors will have a problem with you exploring different types of software. Nik software is very good. Silver Effects Pro will have some nice products that you can use. If you feel comfortable enough, convert your images in black and white, dodge and burn a little bit. But at this stage, we don't want you to spend a lot of time in manipulating the image. Later on, as you're growing, you can apply more. Excuse me. So you're looking at the image for a nice range of blacks and whites, if it's a full range image, and making sure that there's a closure on it. Just by putting this border on here does not mean that salvages the photograph. Excuse me. So if I see this on your images, I know that it was an attempt to create closure within the image. High key in color work kind of sometimes refers to like a washed out image. We're going to play a little bit with the Gestalt laws and understanding what happens here, but just kind of a little fun slide. These colors that you see here are the primary colors according to the painter's color wheel. So remember, this is according to the painter's color wheel, not the printer's color wheel, which you're learning in post-production. So red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors, and we know those are primary because they cannot be made of any other colors. So a little play with the Gestalt principles here. What principles in play? Supposedly you can see a clown that fell down here, so kind of a playful slide. Green, purple, and orange are created from primary colors, and we refer to those as the secondary colors. Tertiary, or the third colors, are combined out of the second colors. Understanding the color wheel, if you have a good color wheel, find one online so that you see how those colors flow in a color wheel, what color complements are, and how they work together. And again, in working with the printer's color wheel, you're working with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Red and blues are very strong in combination with each other. They'll create a very dynamic image. And we tend to think that color complements are very dynamic, red and green, but be very aware of the power of a strong red against a blue. Colors also evoke emotions, or they're associated, they have associated emotions with them. And that will also be very important in different cultures. So if you're shooting weddings, be mindful of who you're delivering the product to so that the colors that you might use will be significant to your client. One of the other things that we look for with working with color is the color effects after the image. And what this slide was supposed to tell you, or kind of dictate, is that when you look at a color and you stare at it long enough and then you look at a white screen, typically you will see that colors complement. So it doesn't kind of work in the slide format here, but if I was to stare at this green screen long enough and then look off into a white wall, typically I'll see a shadow of red. Vice versa, if you're seeing red and you look at a wall that's white, you'll see green. So just a little bit of psychology with colors. Colors are harmonious when they're in the same group. For example, some reds, oranges, yellows, we refer to those as warm colors, and they will have different effects. This sunset tends to have, even though it has a blue sky, which is cool, it kind of comes off with a very warm feeling or tone to it because of the red setting sun. And looking at this image, we'll refer to this as a low contrast, probably a high key image, because there isn't a lot of darks in this. If we looked at this on a range of whites to blacks and a tonal scale, we'll say that this is in the higher registers of just the whites and the light grays. This is a very high key image. We don't see any blacks in it. People use it a lot for artistic work, for weddings, baptism images, portraits. So this is a high key image with low contrast. Low contrast, again, there's not a range of grays in this image, but it's a very dynamic image. Very strong, rich blacks with a lot pinpoints of light. Very high key. This particular image has a nice range from lights to darks and a lot of grays in between. It's very dynamic, and it's a very strong image with even tonal values. If high key and low key images are confusing for you, and they're kind of hard to achieve when you're starting out in post-production, try to stick with an image that just has a nice range of blacks and whites that are well distributed from edge to edge, and be very aware of that puzzle. If it looks like a puzzle piece, then you have lack of closure and the image is bleeding out, and that's not very desirable. So look for some black and whites, look at the masters. You will find online a history PowerPoint that will look at the masters group F64 that work totally in black and white. So if you understand the work of the masters, it will help you in your own work as well. This is a really poignant image. We also want to look at black and white, or any image really that will deliver a strong narrative. And black and white tends to evoke a lot more story in the image oftentimes than the black and white. When you remove that kind of seduction factor of color, then you're left with just tonal values. What does the tonal value do to you? The image has to be very strong to deliver that narrative. So looking at this image, we can start to talk about what's going on with it. What does it do to the viewer? What was the meaning and the purpose behind this image? And obviously, it's about these footprints. How many people have come across this home base? How many people have been in this field? What are the stories these little footprints have to tell? And I think that we can look at this and all come up with our own little story. So when you look at a black and white print or any print, be aware of the story that it delivers. But when you remove that element of color, if the image is not telling you something, if it's not pulling you into it to want to understand more, then it's typically it's lost something. A very cool image, has a lot of blues, purples in it, underlying tones. This is more color complement, blues and orangey kind of colors, so it's a very much more dynamic image. What should you know about this week? Understand what chiaroscuro is and how lighting affects the image. Understand that the painter's color wheel is different from a printer's color wheel, and that the primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. No other colors can make those colors. So the assignment for week 5 asks that you produce 4 images. One image should be about the intensity of color. One should be about a color complement, red and green, purple and yellow, blue and orange, and 2 images should be black and white. The important factor here is that when you're out to shoot these color images, you have to be able to say, will that one make a good black and white? Which one will make a good black and white, and bring it back and do a little bit post-production. We're not looking for you to do great amounts of manipulation with your image. Feel free to use one of the standard processors that are out there that can create a nice black and white image for you if you want to attempt a high key or low key with that photo. Or even if you're out shooting with that intention, feel free to do so. So 4 images, and again, we're always shooting 36 images. Post 18 to your Flickr account, or the method of delivery for your instructor. 4 images can be posted to your Flickr group for critique. Follow each individual instructor's requirements. Have a good week.